The following program is a real estate and mortgage show and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Good evening and welcome to Your Home, Your Money with your hosts Anthony and Ray right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email. Our email address is yourhomeyourmoney101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Your Home, Your Money, Anthony and Ray.
Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Thanks for joining us again. Randy and Jackie aren't here today, so might be a little less confrontational today, less bickering. So sorry for those of you who come for just that. But we do have Ray with us today again, who's going to go over some of the stuff we have in the market for. I know a lot of you guys are worried about not being able to afford your first home, maybe even your second home, or not sure what you want to do with home you have now. We're going to talk a little bit about that, some of the different programs that are in the market for those of you looking, and to talk about some other little things that are kind of going on in the market right now, where they're doing with like the bank rate was cut 50 points a few days ago. How does that affect you if you're looking for a mortgage? And a lot of other things as well in terms of again getting into a home. I guess maybe we can start with the bank rate, since it did cut. It was a few days ago, and I think Randy always talks about how it's sure it's nice. I guess it's lowered for some people, but in terms of getting a mortgage right now, I'm not sure how much that will help you, because as he always says, the mortgages that we're getting now generally are fixed rates, because a lot of people are scared of the variable rate, and right now a fixed rate is still lower than the variable rate. However, the fact that the Bank of Canada reduced that rate really has nothing to do with your fixed mortgage rate. That's more tied to the bond yields, which actually have gone up. So the mortgage rates, fixed rates may actually go up a little bit, but it's still lower than the variable. So again, I'm pretty sure everyone's still scared of that variable rate right now. And again, if you're going to go in today, even as the fixed rate may go up a little bit, it's still lower than that variable rate. So.
Yeah, it's incredible, and we all get caught up in our reality, and we all have one. And we can talk about inflation, we can talk about the economy, we can talk about the cost of living, which is inflation. But the reality is, it's your personal economy that matters. And I think our listeners will all agree that you can hear all these stories and so on, and it always amazes me when I'll go to dinner or to a store, I'm like, I thought nobody had any money. But we do have money. And actually, grab some stats, because I want to talk about those kind of first. Do you know that the average millennial couple in Canada spends $300 to $600 a month dining out? That's the average middle-class millennial couple. I wonder if they're aware of that. See, what we know statistically, millennials live for experience over stuff. That is the truth. But those same millennials want to buy a home. And wanting to buy a home, you're contradicting your own goals. You see, 2 weeks ago when I was on the call, we always get emails about, you guys are always, talking about how great things can be and being positive and all that. Listen, I can't speak for Anthony, I can speak for me. Life isn't always great. I've been rich and I've been poor, and I've been broken poor. And the discernment to me between broke and poor, broke people are late paying bills, poor people don't have money for food. I've been there. I've done it all. I know what it's like to go to a pawn shop to buy formula for my baby. So I only share that with you so you can understand I get it. But getting it and not doing something about it means you get to keep it. If you understand what I'm saying. So think about it for a second. So you want to buy a house, you want to get a debt, you can't understand why you can't get ahead, you want to go do that dream trip, you want to get married, you want to do something nice for your parents, your kids, whatever, $300 to $600 a month on dining out. What about coffee? That's $50 to $150 a month, as I got a coffee to the left of me, but I didn't pay for it. It was here. It's free. Well, it's not free to somebody, but free to me. So
that $50 on top of the $600?
Yes,
oh, okay.
That's in addition to the dining out. So if you're on the upper scale of that, that's close to $750 a month. And then we question when, like I say, I did a very heartfelt talk a couple weeks ago and gave a story about a single mom that I did some business with that it actually fundamentally changed her life in the end. And as a guy who's been in the financial world for a long time, here's what I've learned. If I sat down with 10 families, 7 were going to be okay anyways. They might have done some investing, they may have done some insurance, may change a couple things, but they're going to be okay. They're just going to do what they're doing. But 3, I can fundamentally change their life. Because they took on the more creative ways of getting ahead so they could buy their first home and not get afraid of the current economic situation. I mean, I remember when I got married and bought my first home in 1991, and I bought the house. It was in Curtis, Ontario. It's probably worth about $750,000 today. Bought it for $164,000. And all you guys go, "Oh, you're so lucky." Well, when I bought it for $164,000, I put down $40,000, but I had a 6-month closing. Before it closed, I had to put an extra $20,000 down because it dropped in value. See, that was when the market was collapsing. So if I didn't have that money, there'd be a problem. And my interest rate was 11.9%, and that was a good deal. And I locked it in for 5 years because it was such a good deal. And so that house cost me $1,700 a month for principal, interest, and taxes. And some people, when the mortgages were, 1% and 2%, were paying that on $1 million. So that cost didn't change, is what I'm trying to tell you. The monthly expense, I should say, didn't change. And, I don't want to take over the whole show. I know Anthony's got some more stuff. I just want to start there. Because the next part I want to talk about is about how can you be creative in this world? Because see, when I was doing a lot of financial planning in the Durham area especially, there was a lot of GM workers who had GM life insurance, they had a pension, and they had a house they bought 25, 30 years ago that they were going to leave to their kids. There was going to be somewhat of an inheritance here. But see, we live in an interesting country when it comes to death taxes. We have something what's called deemed disposition. It basically means that when the final parent dies, everything's deemingly sold and you pay capital gains on it. I actually have a client purchased their home in Toronto in 1950 for about $14,000. Today it's worth $2 million. So when she passes away, her son will end up paying about $1 million, $1.2 million in capital gains tax on that house. It's just the way it's going to go. And
or you mean tax on $1 million?
Yeah, and so on. So what I'm trying to press upon you is that it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much money you don't have. It's about knowing what you want to have and how to get there. And I guess that was kind of my point a couple weeks ago when I was trying to have a real heartfelt conversation with the audience about what is possible no matter what's going on. There's always opportunity out there if you want to look for it. And all I know for sure is you got to change your outlook. We need to change our outlook as a society. It's not even the same as it was, and I don't always have these conversations every Tuesday, but I can't go anywhere anymore where customer service is what it used to be. I mean, I don't know about you, and it's just not the same. But it's the same thing for the guests. That person that's at the restaurant's a little bit less patient, a little bit ruder than they used to be, but so's the server. And I don't know what that's about. I mean, I thought we're Canadians. Aren't we nice to everybody? Like we say sorry about everything. I think we lost that during COVID. We were locked down too much and we forgot the word sorry. I don't really know. But what I really want to talk about for a few minutes is an interesting technique that I've been using for years. And it's not morbid. I want to give you it's not about morbidity. It's not about people dying. It's about understanding if you're a millennial. And if you were going to invest $500 a month for 20 years at a 6% interest rate of return, you're going to end up with about $220,000 at the end of it.
How long? Sorry, how long is that?
20 years. 20 years, 6% interest. It's about $220,000 is what you'll net out at. $120,000 be growth. So if you understand our tax system, the highest interest you'll pay on an investment is on interest. Highest tax you'll pay is on interest, right? So it's interest, dividends, capital gains in that order. I'm sharing this with you for a reason. If you're in your 30s as a millennial couple, have you ever considered, if your parents aren't really well off, about owning an insurance policy on them? As an investment, it's not morbid. Don't take it the wrong way. I did it. I owned a policy on my mom, and because of it, when she got cancer, I was able to take care of all her bills for the last 13 months of her life. An insurance policy did that because it had a terminal illness benefit. If I didn't buy that policy and own that policy on my mom, who couldn't afford it for herself, then that wouldn't have worked out. Do you understand that you could possibly get anywhere from $250,000 to a $500,000 policy on your parents for that same money? If they're 65, life expectancy says in and around 85. Don't quote me on it. I know tables are different depending on, lifestyle, things like that, but roughly. And again, I'm not being morbid. Here's what we know for sure. Do we know people die?
Sorry, I just want to interrupt you because I'll touch on that a little bit. So you got this policy on your mom.
Yeah.
Did the doctor have to come and check her out, or is it something you can just do with them?
No, she has to be insurable. Yeah, you can't wait until your mom's dying and go.
I just mean like. So
you need her permission. Yeah. You need her permission. It's a conversation you got to have. Okay. And if you got the wrong relationship with your parents, they're going to take it the wrong way. I really do want to share this because it is really a great strategy in the world we live in today. Because you're not going to inherit as much money as you think. Is where I was really starting this. By the time the tax man gets it, and here's what I know: both my mom and dad died of terminal illnesses. I took care of all my dad's expenses the last year of his life, took care of all my mom's expenses, but part of that was taken care of through insurance. My dad was uninsurable, so I couldn't own a policy on him. There was no inheritance on either of my parents. I paid for their burials. I paid for some of their debts and things that were left behind. And it's getting more and more like that. See, if it came down to your mom, having quality of life if she got sick, would you want her to spend all her money to have quality of life? I know the answer is yes. So then you say, okay, well, mom, dad, we heard about this strategy. It's going to cost us $500 a month. You have to commit to that $500 a month or you're going to waste it. But think about it. If it's $250,000 instead of $220,000, you'd get it 6%. 6% is not guaranteed. It could go up and down. And half of that interest is going to be taxed, thereabouts, depending on when you pull it out. So now you're not at 220 anymore. You're at more like 160, 170 as a net, where this is 250 tax-free, up to $500,000 depending on your parents' health. So life insurance, the death benefit is completely tax-free. And as long as you have an insurable interest, like you do on your mom, your grandparents, and your children, or somebody who owes you money, you can own insurance on those people and get that death benefit tax-free unequivocally. It's one of the last things left in our country that's totally tax-free. It supersedes the will, it supersedes the power of attorney, as long as there's a named beneficiary. And if you own the policy, of course you're going to name yourself as that beneficiary and policy owner. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we want everybody to own policies on their parents and wait for them to die. That's not it. It's about what we do know. We know everybody does not get out of here alive. We all go. And if that's the case, it's just a mathematical formula. There's no emotion in this for me, as you can tell. It's mathematical. And if, listen, my daughter and future son-in-law, they own policies on his parents. They don't own on me because I have a gazillion policies because I've been in the industry my whole life. Nobody needs to own a policy on me. But my point is that it's smart. It's a smart move financially for probably 8 out of 10 cases. There'll be a couple cases where it isn't because of medical reasons of your parents, age of your parents. But I recently had somebody put a policy on their 84-year-old dad, and it mathematically makes sense unless he lives until he's 100. And hope he does. She hopes he does. But statistically, he probably won't. So that's kind of a different angle as far as money goes, Anthony. But I thought I'd start there in the show for sure.
Okay, well, that is, I guess, quite interesting, and I guess would be a good conversation for some people. And I'm sure, I guess, as you say, it depends on the family dynamic. And some people, again, it does make sense, but some people, when it comes to death, are kind of like, they don't want to hear any of it. So it's so I guess one of those touchy subjects depending on the family. We do have a few emails. One from Evan. Evan says, "What? No arguing tonight? You mean that we are actually going to learn something? You go, guys. Merry Christmas to you." Thank you, Evan. Merry Christmas to you as well. From James, Merry Christmas to Anthony Ray. Thanks for the advice. Most appreciated. Thank you, James. From Andrew. Andrew asking who we have with us. We have Ray with us today. He's here to talk to us about financial planning, what you can do to own your first home, what you can do to basically better yourselves financially with different tactics. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them in and we'll do our best to answer them for you. From Tim, "Hey, where is Jackie and Randy? Marriage counseling?" I don't think so. They had a previous engagement tonight. They she'll be back next week. And we're not sure if we're gonna be here next week. I'll try to get that answer to you before we leave tonight. But yeah, they will be back for sure. And finally, from Bob. Bob says, "Good evening tonight to Anthony and Ray. May you both have a blessed Christmas. Thank you for all the advice tonight." Thank you, Bob, and that's it. So, for any of those of you out there who have any questions, feel free to send them to yourhomeyourmoney101@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to help you out with those questions. Before we I guess move on, you said something about deemed disposition, where basically on death, everything's taxed at basically full market cap, and basically so for example, you have a $2 million home, great. However, you can't just move into that home. You have to sell it, I guess, go through the process. Or do you have to sell it, or can you just pay the taxes on it if you want to?
You just pay the taxes.
Okay, so you have to pay
at fair market value.
At fair market value, okay? So basically you have to either mortgage the house. Can you mortgage it in the process to get the money, or do you have to do that first?
No, you can do that. It just depends on the structure of the will, assuming there is one.
Okay.
And tell you, make sure everybody's got a will. You guys, your parents, it is, I can't even say how important it is.
All right, I guess I'm not sure if you know, is there any ways to get around, I guess, could the home be put into like a business name type of thing, or is that
you can actually do, so one of the things you can do is you can do joint ownership right of survivorship, where one of the children, all the children go on it. The challenge in that is a guy who's done this for a long time. If you got like 2 or 3 kids and one of them decides they want to move to Florida, they want their share now.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden it becomes a war.
Okay.
And worst of all, that means your parents are giving up their assets while they're alive. Always a problem if there's a breakdown in a marriage, things like that. So there are complications with that, but you can do that. You can do joint ownership, right of survivorship. Corporation's not as easy, because then you still got to have everybody on the corporation. What share of ownership? Then you're into usually buy-sell agreements in the corporation to maintain the asset. So
that's curious, and I guess I can hear you too with that. I've heard some stories of when the parents die and like there's 2 or 3 family members and they're all good until, for some reason, when money is involved, people sometimes go crazy, and I don't know. To me, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's, again, who knows what with my siblings, I don't think we'd have a problem. But like, if there's a problem, say you guys can keep it. I'm not fighting over
without question. Yeah.
All right, so I guess we can get back into that.
It'll go right into what you were going to go through on all the home buyers plans. So.
Okay, so yes, again, I think we touched on it before. But there are, again, for those of you, I guess kind of to touch on what you're talking about before with like, I guess, having a plan, and people with like, you're talking about the couple spending $600 a month beforehand. I think at the end of the day, it's whether it's not about being positive, being negative, or being whatever, it's just about being, if you want something, you have to have a plan. If there's no plan and you're just kind of just living, you're gonna get what you get, right? And you might be one of those lucky ones where it just falls in your lap. But in today's market where houses are $1 million on the cheap end, you're making, I'm not sure what the average is right now. I'm pretty sure it's less than 100K. As a family, maybe 120 is the family income. 120 it's not nothing, but when homes now are $1 million, 1.2, 1.5 million, 120,000 really isn't that much. So if you don't have a plan of action for how you're gonna get what you're gonna get, again, you're just basically throwing paint on the wall and hoping something sticks. And again, for most people, I don't think that will work, especially in today's age. Like again, you said your home was 170, and again, there was different challenges back then, but 11% is crazy, crazy. But 11% on a small number isn't as bad as it would be. 11% now would be like no one's getting a house because you'll be paying like whatever,
12,000, 15,000 a month,
something stupid, right? So there are ways for first-time home owners or people who've owned a home before, maybe got to the market and they've been out for, there's certain restrictions for what first home time buyer is. I think it's 4 years of not living in a principal residence, and there may be some other little things in there as well. But there are many different buyers plans that we have out there. One of them is the FHSA, which is like a savings account where you can put away, I think it's $8,000 per year.
Per year, yeah.
Per year.
For 4 years.
For 4 years, is it up to
40,000?
Yeah, all right. So 5 years then.
Yeah. The 5 years, pardon me. And you guys got to keep in mind, if you skip a year, you lose that contribution. It's not.
I thought I heard it was you can. I thought it was you can keep up to 1 extra year and bring over, carry over.
You can bring it over, but you have to be careful because if you do it wrong, you don't time it out right.
Okay.
You could lose a year's contribution. Okay. It's not like RSPs where it accumulates. It's kind of the way I explain it. It's kind of like the best of an RSP and a tax-free savings account, as long as you do it consecutively for the 5 years. You don't miss a hitch.
Okay, so
if you can do it.
Oh, so it has to be done in the 5 years. So you can't do like 6 years and put like.
No.
Oh, so you have to do 40,000 in 5 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of restrictive then. So.
It is in its own rate.
Yeah.
It is. It's a big commitment, but I all know that you guys are spending $700 a month on coffee and food. So there's your $8,000 right there. And I know it never seems that way, you know. And none of us budget well enough. It's one of the things I always tried to do when I was out doing financial analysis for people. But there's no money in doing a budget for somebody, and most people don't follow it anyway, so you didn't spend a lot of time on it, unfortunately. And I gotta tell you, it's one of the most paramount things. You need to make sure your credit rating is in good shape. It is one of your biggest assets when it comes to buying homes and cars, is your credit rating, and you've got to be saving on a regular basis, and if you're not, you won't. Just a quick math thing, do you understand that if you're 18 years old, and you decide to put away $2,000 a year from age 18 to 25. It's now your 25th birthday, you're getting married, you're gonna have a baby, you say no more $2,000 a year, I need it for diapers, right? And then your friend says, I'm not doing that, I'm partying until I'm 25, and then they start putting it away from 25 to age 65. So that's 40 years versus 7 years. Do you know both those people end up with the exact same amount of money at a 12% rate of return? Forget that that's the rate I'm talking about. It's the only one I memorized. So that's what I'm talking about. You both end up with $1.2 million. It's time value of money. The most valuable investment you'll ever make is the first one that you make that you leave there, not the first one you make. The first one that you make that you leave there. That one is going to accumulate the most. It's the time value of money. And then investing money on a monthly basis, depending on where you're investing, also creates something called dollar cost averaging, where the market goes up and down like this. One month you're buying high, now you're buying low, you're buying high, buying low, but it averages up. If you look at an index chart, and anyone you can Google an index chart for the indexes, you'll see, take any 7-year period and you'll see a consistent double-digit rate of return between 9 and 12%, depending on which area of the market you go into. So what you guys need to understand, what these programs do, like the first-time home buyers plan, the retirement savings plan, tax-free savings account, there are enough incentives and extra money on the table by reducing your income by doing these contributions that you could get there. Because we can't forget that when you put $1 into a home savings plan, that reduces your income by that amount. So if you have a job and you make $50,000 and you put $8,000 into a home buyer's plan or registered retirement savings plan as a home buyer's plan, that reduces your income from $50,000 to $42,000. But you pay tax on 42 or on 50. So the government's going to give you the difference back. That's the opportunity. That's one of the windfalls. So.
Right. And that's if you're working like not for yourself.
Yeah. When you're self-employed, all you're doing is reducing tax liability generally. Yeah. So what you're doing is knocking down what you could owe. So when I used to say it to clients, that's exactly how I'd say it. I go, it doesn't mean you're going to return. It just means you're offsetting what you could owe. And for some people, that just means it's bigger credit, and some people means they just don't have to pay.
Yeah. So I guess for normal employees, you pay your taxes basically every paycheck versus
you got it.
Self-employed. All right, cool. So I guess next one we talk about is the retirement, the
Home buyers
plan. Yes, where with that one I believe it's up to $60,000.
Yep, it is now. Yep.
Yeah. So with that one, up to $6,000, you basically pull it out of your RSP, and the good thing is, you can use it for your down payment, and I think it's yourself and your spouse if you have one.
Correct.
So up to 120 down, which with the new plan right now, that can get your house up to, let's see, 25. 120, 50, 100. I think up to around 1.3. I think right now.
In there about that area, yeah.
Around 1.3 million. Because like with the new plan now, so basically with the new, plan the government has out right now, for the first $500,000, you're paying 5% down, which is 25 grand on $500,000, and then from $500,000 up to 1.5 million, you're paying $10,000 per 100,000. So basically, you can get a house for 1.5 million, and you would have to have $150,000 to put down for that home.
That's right.
Once you pass 1.5 million, you're now paying 20%. But at 1.5 million, there should be more than enough property on the market for you to get. Especially in Toronto, maybe not as much, but once you leave Toronto, go into the outskirts.
Yeah, the outskirts for sure.
There'll be definitely any type of home you want, whether it's a condo, detached, townhouse, anything you want in terms of that price range. But yeah, so the good thing about that is, again, you do get to use that. The one, I guess downfall for that one, you can talk about it a bit, is that you do have to pay it back because it gets considered a loan because it's part of your RSP.
Yeah, you've got to recontribute it to your RSPs, which you probably want to do anyways. So when I do this for a family or a couple, we budget that all in because it starts a year after you take it out. So now you're in your house. A year later, now you're recontributing your RSPs. But honestly, if you're not contributing to your retirement savings plan, I don't know who you think is going to take care of you. Because if you think it's old age security and Canada pension plan, you might want to get a better backup plan. They're not going to help you at all. And there's other strategies you can use to fast track that. So if you have the room in your RSPs, and it's right now we're dealing with tax year 2024. So you have until the end of February to do a contribution for 2024. You could actually do an RSP loan with most institutions. And let's say you made $100,000 at your job. I'm going to talk about a T4 job, not self-employed. And you put $30,000 in it. And the government's going to adjust your income by $30,000. So that's going to cost you about $330 a month amortized over 10 years. You're not paying back over 10 years. That's counterproductive to what I'm talking about. So then come March or April when you file, and again, get your tax account to back that up. That's my disclaimer. I'm not giving you an actual return amount and all that stuff. Okay, there's my compliance disclaimers. But you could get $10,000 to $15,000 back in your refund this coming March or April when you file. In addition to that, if you have children, all your other household tax benefits go up, whether it be an HST tax thing or child tax credit, whatever the government has, they're all based on your income, your taxable income. So if you and your wife both did this, now you have $60,000, get close to a $30,000 refund, you get to pay one of those loans off.
Okay.
There's $30,000 that's already available. Do it again next year, re-amortize the other ones. Now you're at $60,000 basically in 15 months.
So you can do it twice?
Yeah, as long as you are credit worthy, that's why credit's important. And if you paid off the first loan, you can do it again. Assuming you have the rooms.
Oh, you mean if you have the space in your RSP? Okay,
yeah, you have to have the limits. You have to have good credit within reason. And if you don't pay the first loan off and you decide to take that $30,000 and go to, Bora Bora or Maldives or one of those places, awesome. I've not been, but I hear it's awesome. But it probably costs about $20,000. So that would defeat the purpose. All I'm saying, guys, and it's hard when you're on a radio show and stuff like that to really kind of draw that out. It's very individualized. Every person's financial situation is completely individualized. So when I sat down with my mom when she was 56 years old and decided to own a policy on her, it's because she worked for the government, she worked for social services, she only had basic life insurance, which was $10,000. That's all she had in her benefit plan. And I decided to own a policy on her. And the truth is, I owned it on her because I'd co-signed her mortgage. And I thought, well, if something happened to her, then if there was a shortfall, I'd just take it out of the insurance. Well, a year and a half later, she gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. We were able to access 40% of the benefit while she was alive as a terminal illness benefit. So I gave her a check for $47,500 while she was alive. Then social services, not picking on them, another disclaimer, don't want to get sued, but their health and dental provider at the time, I won't say Manulife, denied long-term disability, and she was terminally ill. She had 13 months to live because she could still type, and she was a data input clerk. So then she had to pay for her health and dental benefits because she was going to be on morphine and all that stuff, which back then was like $600 a month.
Oh my God.
So what if now you're off work, you're terminally ill, now you got a $600 bill, then she went to a naturopath, that was $800 a month. Guys, you want to set things up right, and you want to do it sooner than later. That's all I can tell you. Things change quickly, right? For the good and for the bad. And if you sat down with an advisor, I'm not saying me, I'm not saying my company, you go sit down with a professional advisor, somebody you trust, and do a little research. You know, we have this thing called Google, right? You can look up anything now and do some research, be informed. Don't just take somebody's advice, make sure you understand that advice. Lots of great books out there as well. And it may be boring initially, but it's worth it. You need to learn how your money works. It's that simple. And if you don't, you're going to miss out on tax refunds, opportunities, things that might make sense for you and your family. I'm not really sure. Everybody is unique, but this is your life, and only you get to choose how you live it. And some small tweaks, some small sacrifices could fundamentally change everything for you and your family. I remember after I had went through a divorce and was kind of starting my life over, because I was financially independent when I was 25 and I was broke and starting over at 28, had to move back in with my mom and all that fun stuff. And I remember all that stuff like yesterday. I became so disciplined with my money. I ended up living in South Oshawa in this little house I bought for $109,000, and I had 3 daughters. We all shared a room together because it was a 2-bedroom house, but the 1 bedroom was so badly ruined. I didn't have the money to renovate it yet. And guys, I'm only sharing this with you because I remember I started really growing my income again. I was making about $250,000 a year, and some friend had come over and they were talking to me. They go, "I heard you make all this money. Why do you live here?" I go, "Well, you live with your mom, so I'm one up on you, right?" And her name was Jody, and I said, "Jody, you have to understand. I know what it's like to have no money, so I'd rather have a bunch of money than a fancy car and a fancy house, because being broke is synonymous to stress. Period." People get divorced over money before everything else. They have affairs over money before everything else. They have heart disease over money, cancer. Stress is synonymous to not being able to breathe in our society. And unfortunately, I wish money wasn't like oxygen, but unfortunately it is, because there isn't anything you're going to do, think about, or want to do that you're not going to have to deploy money to do it.
That's one of those things you're most likely worry about it, but especially when you don't have it, that's when you're definitely going to worry about it, right? So,
isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Like I love people go, "I don't really worry about money." Well, it's because you have so much, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. I was going to say something, but I completely forgot. Anyways, actually, there's I guess one more. There's a few more of those things. There's the other one is the small tax credit. That one is
the 1,500.
Yeah, I think $1,500 max. Where again, it's
It all adds up.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure if someone was to give you $1,500 in $100 bills, you would take that pretty quickly and say thank you and run away before they ask for it back, right? So, a lot of little things which again, as Ray says, adds up. You have the 120 you can get with the RSP contributions. You have the 40,000. Is that 40,000 per person as well?
Per person, yeah.
Okay, so that's right there is $20,000. And again, yes, with the FHSA, you do have to have the money yourself. With RSP, as Ray's saying, there is some ways you can finagle that where you're using partially your money, partially borrowed money, right? Where again, it's if you can get like that loan for $15,000 and you can pay it back with your money getting back from taxes, it's
just
free-ish money, right? It makes sense. Why use your money when you can use somebody else's or borrow someone else's at very low cost, right? So it does make sense if you do it properly. And again, the main thing is if you have that plan. We do have 2 emails. One was from Gail. Gail was asking where they can find you if you have like a web presence at all.
Yeah, it's lmifg.com.
All right, so that's lmifg.com.
Yep.
So Larry, Michael, Francis,
Ingrid
Graham.com.
So it's Lifestyles Management Financial Group is the acronym.
Yeah. All right, and from Francis, this is great advice tonight from guest Ray. It makes you think, that's for sure. And I think, again, that's a great, I guess, segue from you, Francis. It makes you think, right? I think that's the main thing, as I was kind of touching before, where don't just walk through. Like, I know Ray's been talking about it and all, and maybe I'm talking about it a bit too, and I'm not trying to like tell you guys what to do, but at the end of the day, is you really have to have a plan. Like, you have to say, wake up and say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to talk to Ray because I have young kids myself. My youngest is 11, oldest 16, and we talk about money with them a little bit, but I want to make sure, again, even if it's $50 a week, just put it away. Don't touch it, right? When your kids get their first job, instill in them, like, they make $20 whatever a week. A quarter of that, put it away. Even 40%.
Something.
And I say as much as they can, because at that age, I'm pretty sure, again, I would have done it too. A lot of it just goes to crap. Like, it's like you're gonna go to McDonald's here, you're gonna go Starbucks there, you're gonna buy this toy which you don't need, and like, yes, it's great. The instant gratification is nice, but I think it starts with us. If we can teach the next generation, teach our kids like to start from young, like that compound effect. It's because I teach math, right? And like one of our lessons we teach is, would you rather have $1 million today or a penny doubled for a month, right? If you don't know how compounding works, a lot of people would take that $1 million because it's $1 million. But that one penny doubled for 30 days, I believe, turns into like 5.6 million over 30 days, right? Because you have that compound effects where it starts small. Day one is tiny. After 1 week, it's a couple bucks. After 2 weeks, it's still maybe $10,000-$20,000. But when you get to that 25th day, 26th day, it just starts to blow up. And that's how compound interest works, where you have that money sitting there. It's slowly doing, it's working for you in the market, working. You don't notice it. And the thing is, if you can keep that mindset of not, let's let it sit there. Even if it looks big to you, just let it sit. It's working for you every day. And if you let that compound, you'll be surprised at what you can achieve with such little work now, and the now being the past now, right? The as soon as possible now. Like even if your kid is, if you have the wherewithal when your kid's 10, 5, put away, even if it's $10 a month or $10, whatever it is, whatever you can afford, a little bit where it's not really affecting you. If someone, whatever, if you've dropped $10 that week, you'd be pissed off because you lost $10, but it's not going to change your life, right? But it will make a huge difference for the life of your kid in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So
yeah, and being creative and disciplined are the two most powerful things I can say when it comes to your money. You have to be creative, and I don't mean do something illegal or stupid. I'm talking about find out what's out there and take advantage of it and be creative in and around it. I remember this couple, they were living in a basement apartment. She was pregnant, they were just dating, they weren't married yet, and they wanted to save for a house. And we started that whole process with an RSP loan. And they did a $10,000 one, and he was an electricianal apprentice, and she was a server in actually Bellamy's in Whippy when it used to be there.
I like Bellamy's.
Yeah, so anyway, so they started there, and guys, get this, about 10, 12 years later, they have a house because they used the home buyer's plan, they used the money that they had, they set that as part of their permanent budget. Whatever that RSP loan was, $200, $300, $400 a month, they decided that was their discipline amount for savings. Well, unfortunately, 2 kids later, life changes, he's an electrician, she's still a server, they separate. She ended up leaving with enough money in their retirement plan as a single mom to buy another home. And all I'm saying about that, guys, and just so you're clear, and it's not good or bad, things happen in life. Unfortunately, life's unpredictable. And if we knew how everything was going to work out, I don't think we'd leave our house. Because if we would just go, I'm not leaving, this isn't going to work out for me at all. It's going to be a bad life. I'm just going to wait here. And I'm just sharing that with you because I could go through a million scenarios. This isn't hypothetical for me. I've lived this for... Well, I got licensed in 1996 in financial services, and my primary market has been middle class. I never chased big accounts. I'm like, there's a million guys trying to chase that $1 million. I'm going to chase everybody who's got $5,000 because nobody's chasing them. And I took a very educational approach to financial services versus a sales approach. I have an automotive background. I was brought up in a family that owned repair garages, so I followed suit to my dad. And the thought of sitting down, I'll tell you a true story that scared me about going to this industry. It was about 8 months before I kind of got recruited into financial services. I was at the baptism of my cousin's wife's kid, whatever that makes her, second cousin, I guess. And the grandfather of that baby had just joined a company, won't say their name, London Life, and they don't exist anymore, so I can say it all I want. They can sue me, they're not here. And he literally prospected every person at the baptism for insurance. The funeral makes more sense. This too could be you. Sorry, that too soon, too far. And I'm like, that's just disgusting. Yeah. And then when I first got invited to a meeting to look at the industry when my business was failing in the automotive industry, I'm like, no way, because I kept picturing him, but I'm not him. And I was never going to be him. And I was never going to make people feel uncomfortable. I was never going to talk somebody into getting something they didn't want. I was going to explain the facts, and here's how I see it. The one thing I love about what I've been doing for a living for 20 plus years, it's math. And the math, like you teach math, it either works in your favor or it doesn't. Oh yeah, I can inflate the numbers by saying you're at 18% return, but if you pay attention to anything at all, you know I'm lying. Okay, that's not a real number. That's not something you ever want to hang your hat on. If I'm telling you between 6 and 10, you could look that up and see that's possible. If I'm telling you between 10 and 18, don't listen to me. I mean, I'm just being realistic. Do those things happen? Of course, I can show you a million investment funds this year that have made 20%. but it doesn't change the fact that they could lose more than that. And you have to be willing to understand risk versus reward and what is it you're trying to do. So if you're trying to buy a house, you don't want to risk your money. You want to plan appropriately. You want to be steady Eddie wins the race, and that is a real thing. And anything's achievable with sacrifice. You know, those meals that you're eating out. You know, I was looking up some of the stats about couples as part of this because, you know, why not? Because it seems to make sense. And it actually, there's a statistical fact that couples that make dinner together are more likely to stay together.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, you have a knife in your hand a lot, and if that person makes it, see, this is why life insurance is important. You gotta make it look like an accident. I'm just kidding. This is not that kind of show. But think about it, though. I mean, that's one of those interactions that you do every day. Maybe do it with your spouse. You know what I mean? Make the dinner, do the dishes together, and you're building this whole autonomy that you're talking about things you might not normally talk about because it's just naturally coming out in that flow of the relationship. So rather than going out for dinner, make a romantic dinner at home, you know, and make it together. I mean, there's merit to anything if you do it consistently and you do it with intent. And investing needs to be done with intent. Saving for a home needs to be done with intent. Reducing your monthly expenses need to be done with intent. I know there's that TV show that was on a while ago where the woman got you put all your money in jars.
Oh, yeah. It's probably a Netflix thing.
Yeah, that's dumb, okay? Why would you put your money in a jar? I know how much interest a jar pays. Nothing. That's not the right thing, but I got why she was doing it. It's visual discipline. Right? So you knew, well, this much is for groceries, and when this jar's empty, we starve to death, you know, that kind of thing. And anything's possible. And I know I keep saying that, but what I found in the few times I've been on this show with you guys, probably 5 times now, is that a lot of times because I get too positive, people will send emails and go, yeah, you guys are just too positive. Well, I am sorry that I'm destroying your hate with positivity. And there's a Christmas movie, I gotta bring it up. It's the holidays, right? It's most of you guys won't remember. It's one of those like claymation ones, like Rudolph. It's called A Year Without Santa Claus, I think it was, or Santa Claus. Santa Claus is coming to town. That's what it is. It's with the Winter Warlock. I don't know if you know it.
Actually, I think I've seen. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
And
it's old, right? It's like old.
Yeah, it's old. Yeah, I'm old, so I told you this. Why'd you have to bring that back up? I don't even know what. This isn't even fair.
I'm getting older, so it's nice.
Yeah, I start talking about something that happened in the '80s. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, that's nice. Anyway, so the whole premise of it, I used to play it this time of year in trainings for my financial reps, because the whole principle of it is there's a song, I'm not going to sing it, I could, but I won't, called Put One Foot in Front of the Other. And the Winter Warlock, when his heart's now melting, he's going to not be evil and all that stuff, and he starts singing with Kris Kringle, put one foot in front of the other, and you know that's the principle of everything in life? I can't give you better principles than that. If you can just put one foot in front of the other, you're moving. And most of us get stuck in our circumstances and situations, and then our circumstances and situations own us. We don't own them. You got to get moving.
Yep, got to keep moving. I have something to say, but I guess I'm getting old too because I lost it.
See, at least I don't have dementia. Okay, my friend here is something's going on. I don't know.
It'll come back eventually.
Got to get you some vitamins.
Yeah, it is what it is.
As long as he can still remember math formulas, his job's still safe, so we're good. Yeah.
Hey, as long as I'm one step ahead of the kids, we're all good.
Well, why do you keep going down a year? He's in kindergarten now. This is a 3.
I'm grade 12 right now, so I got at least 11 more years.
You got a few years to go.
Oh, what's I gonna say? Anyways, we'll come back to that. But I guess one thing to get back more, a little bit into real estate. Something I was gonna talk about is home buying, and basically what you're buying it for, and the ask for like what you're actually paying versus what the list price was. And I guess some good news for those of you who may be looking to buy is that we're not getting as many of those price wars that we used to get. Just when COVID was around. When COVID was around, I think we need to kind of take that with a grain of salt. That was, for lack of a better word, just stupid.
It was messy.
It was. It made no sense. I sold properties where like I legitimately told like a buyer, I don't think you should get this at this price. Like I wouldn't have bought it. I'm like I straight up told them that.
People were paying a whole other house worth over asking.
Yeah, it was stupid. Like, and I legitimately told the person that again he wanted to buy, so I can't tell him not to. But like, I tried to say don't.
was scary,
and,
yeah.
and that house now, if he was trying to sell it, I'm pretty confident that he wouldn't get anywhere near that. So hopefully he's good with the mortgage, with the payments, and he can afford it. Because again, it was a bad purchase at the time, but again, if he stays in there for 20, 30 years, it will correct itself eventually. It's just will take him a bit of time to get there. But it's back on topic is that there are now like what things are being listed for is more reasonable. That's one thing, as well as we don't have the crazy 30, 40 offers on place anymore. So if you see a home listed at whatever, I wouldn't go above right now at all. I would take a shot either at or below and kind of see what happens. There's a lot of, I guess, give you some numbers here. 75% of homes sold in GTA last month went less for what they were seeking. So there's a big market for, again, and that doesn't mean it's going for $1 million and you can put in $850. They're gonna laugh at you, right? But you might get it for, if it's going for $1 million, maybe for $950, $980. Again, put $980, see what happens. Maybe they'll accept it. Maybe they might say, okay, no, we want it at list. But if you have a little bit more wiggle room, you're not fighting with 1,000 people. So to give you a bit of the markets that were underbid in November of this year, York Mills went for an average of 150 below, East Lake for 109 below. And don't get me wrong, these are going for under, but they are higher price properties, right? So when you get to that higher range of 3 million, 2.5 million, you have, I guess, a lot more wiggle room. So don't, again, I don't think you've heard me say this before, but like numbers are the numbers, but numbers can also be skewed as well, right? So not many of us are looking for these $3.5 million homes, $2.5 million homes. We're looking to getting something probably within the, I would say, 8 to maybe 1.3 or $1.4 million, right? So when you're looking at that kind of price range, you are getting a little bit more of the overbidding. And for case in point, the top 5 overbidding neighborhoods in Markham, Milliken Mills, median house price 1.6 million, overbid by 200,000. In Markham, overbid by 66,000. And all these homes range from 970 to 1.6 asking, right? So again, and don't get me wrong, you can still get homes in those lower price ranges without overbidding. It's just you have to pick your communities a little bit better.
Area you want to be in, yeah.
So I just want to touch on that. So again, for those of you who are looking, there are many places. Again, Durham's a good place. Some places in Durham you can get Oshawa for sure. There's certain segments in Oshawa. Even in Ajax and in Whitby lately, I've seen some.
Yeah, Whitby's got some good ones. Bowmanville has some good ones that are. You're getting closer to that $1 million mark and not 1.3. Yeah. And for most couples, they can do that if they're both working and you get a reasonable interest rate because you've taken care of your credit rating. All of those things are paramount.
Okay. Actually, I was going to say, I can remember. I was going to say before, with your interest, with your financial, I guess, credibility. Don't be like how I was when I was younger. When I was younger, a bill would come in the mail. I'd be like, oh, bill's in the mail. And it would just sit there. It would sit there. And I'm still paying what I think, but I'm not really looking. And then before you know it, like because with those credit cards, if you're not paying them on time, what you're at the very least the minimum, and even the minimum is not a good thing to do. Mm-mm. But if at the very least that, your credit score is going to be going down again. And even if you're just paying the minimum, your credit card probably going down. I think it's like 30% you want to have, I guess, around revolving.
Yeah, because the higher your loan to debt ratio is, the worse your credit is. Yeah. So if you don't have at least 30% equity on your credit card, so a $10,000 credit card, if you go over $7,000, you're going down between 40 and 80 points, depending on your other credit. That's a lot. Because if you're a couple and you're under 730 credit score, you're on your way to substandard rate. And then all of a sudden, the house you think you can afford at whatever the current rate is, 4 or 5%, you can't afford it at 8. And now you're taking back out of the market. Not because you didn't have the down payment, not because you didn't have the income, because you're going to pay double your neighbor. Yeah. And we have to be careful with things like that.
Yeah. So again, it's I guess kind of, I would say that's planning. That's just, I guess, owning up to it. And then honestly, when you look at it too, you can say, okay, you know what? Now you can kind of adjust. Say, you know what? I have this credit card. It's not free money. You have to pay it back. And
it isn't?
Unfortunately, not yet. We haven't got there yet. And actually, like, talking about the budget too, like I bought this budgeting program a while ago, and it's eye-opening when you actually see what you're actually, because I basically put everything in there, and so you can kind of see where everything's going. And again, like you were saying with the with the $600 for the couples on things. You don't notice it when you buy that Boost juice for $10 and you go to McDonald's this time. You say, okay, I spent $6 here, I spent $8 there, I spent $5 there. At the end of the month, you spent $800 on what, right? It's again and again. I wouldn't say you want to do that forever, but I would say take 1 month or even a couple weeks and just write down everything you actually pay for or actually buy, so you can actually get a good picture of what you're buying. Because I'm sure there's things where you can say, you know what, I don't really need that, and not only can it help your finances, it might also help your waistline as well, because maybe you don't need that extra. Again, for me, it's, I was telling you right earlier, I love my movie theater popcorn. Maybe I don't need to get that as often, right? So these little things where you can cut out can have, again, more than one benefit if you actually kind of look at what you're doing and kind of, that's, again, at the end of the day, I guess the theme of the day is this plan ahead, plan for tomorrow, right? Don't just live it, plan, okay, I want this, this, and this. What do I have to do today so that I can have this tomorrow?
Yeah, and the case in point in a lot of that, guys, is especially when it comes to like things like your credit rating. If you're not buying a house for a year, you got a whole year to turn it around. But that takes discipline, understanding, and being aware. Awareness is a key factor of financial services, and you need to understand that awareness, kind of what Anthony was talking about, where you just got to write it down. You could take your credit card statement and see how many times you use your debit card. You imagine if you just left your debit card at home? See, I'm old. I remember when you get paid on Friday, if you didn't make it to the bank, you don't have any money until you make it to the bank. Now,
deposit the check.
You got to put the check in, and there wasn't debit cards and tellers or all the ATMs and things like that. And I'm sharing this with you guys because think about it, how readily, if your check is deposited at midnight, by Saturday morning, you could have spent the whole thing online. And unfortunately, everything's become easier, but that's made it worse.
Yeah.
Because natural disciplines don't exist anymore. So all I'm saying for kind of what I wanted to share tonight is, number one, there's always a way. There's always a way. And I threw a lot at you guys tonight. You need to sit down with a professional. I'm happy to sit down with you. I don't care if you ever do business with me. It's totally cool. Because I love explaining it to people. I love showing people things they didn't know. I love teaching people how to overcome the odds. Whether you take that chance or not, it's up to you. That's entirely up to you. Listen, you can have all the greatest information in the world. I was telling Anthony, I've gained and lost more weight than most people weigh at about 8 lifetimes. And I'm back on the track of losing weight again because I got really down to my most optimal weight about a year ago, and then life happens, and I like movie popcorn too with real butter and stuff like that. And it's got to be layered, right? You don't want to get halfway through the popcorn and all of a sudden, why does it not taste the same? Because it doesn't taste the same. What I'm saying is that knowing something and doing something are two different things, but knowing something and not doing it is still not knowing. And I'm not being a philosopher, but it is. If it's like my mom always knew that smoking would cause cancer, but she still smoked, it means she didn't believe it. You get it? Because if you believe it, you won't do it. If you truly believed it was going to harm your life and cause you infinite pain, and my mom died of cancer and she was a smoker. Am I saying they're synonymous? I don't know. I'm anything but a doctor. But all I know is I come from a family of cancer and heart disease, and anything that could prompt those things, I don't do. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do those things. And at this stage of life, my dad had already had a quadruple bypass. He had 2 angina attacks, right? My mom was already gone from cancer. So I think I'm beating those odds at least. And we'll see if I can stay on that trajectory. But I'm saying the same thing to each one of you guys as listeners. You can have the best life. And it may not have been the best life you thought you were going to have, but make it the best life you can have right now. And then go to the next level. Tony Robbins, for those who know who he is, and most of you will know his name, always said, "You're perfect, now change." There's nothing wrong with being exactly who you are right now unless you settle for it when you could be more. It's that simple.
There you go. All right, well, we got a few minutes.
Yeah, no, I got more stuff. But honestly, guys, like I say, what I would like to summarize with then is a few things. I told that story a week ago about this single mom I sat down with because I was trying to win a free trip. And I got an appointment with her because my sister said, "Hey, will you sit down with my brother? He's trying to win a free trip." And she goes, "I'm not buying anything. right? Classic when somebody's come over to sell something. And she ended up becoming an insurance client and doing the home, an RSP loan, and it drove up her child tax credit by $1,000 a month because she was a single mom. So then the next year she called me. I didn't have to call her. Can I do it again? How do we do it again? But at the end of the day, because I'm giving a much shorter version than I did last week, but 5 years later she gets remarried and has me add her husband onto her new policy, or add him onto her policy. And then about a week later, she goes, can I talk to you about something personal? I'm like, yeah, okay. So I go over there, and she goes, well, I want to have a baby. I go, I don't quite understand how I'm involved. And it got a little weird for about 8 minutes. And she goes, no, I had my tubes tied. It cost $5,000 to have them untied. Oh, wow. Would I be able to use some of the RSP money to do that? And I said, well, if we do this and we do this and do this to offset your taxes, sure. So we did it, and then a year and a half later, she had a baby boy. And maybe if I wasn't creative, that wouldn't have happened. I'm not saying she wouldn't have found the money because they wanted to do that with her new husband. But understand, do you understand that when you do something right for somebody, the ripple effect of it? And maybe we don't understand how many people we can impact by the littlest of choices. And we live in a difficult time, in a difficult world, but I would say in the 30s they said the same thing.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
I mean, the Great Depression probably doesn't sound like a good time to me. And my one daughter's in film, and she always talks about the 50s and 60s. Oh, it's a better time then. Was it? Was it Vietnam? I don't really know exactly. You know, my point is there's always something.
Oh, it's crazy. It's funny because, like, the people now say it was easier back then, and the people, older people, like the next generations, you're all idiots. Right? Everyone, like every generation.
We live in a society where a guy made a phone a consumable product, right? He's dead and gone, but Steve Jobs made a phone a consumable product. And it's funny when my daughter calls me and says, I don't have any money for food, Dad, but she's calling me from her $1,000 cell phone that I gave her. I don't quite understand how that all works out now. But guys, honestly, just stop thinking you can't. That's all I can tell you. It's the killer of hope. And there was a TV show that was on a few years ago called Revenge. And she always had these monologues at the beginning and the end. And the biggest thing she always talked about was the word doubt being the most powerful word in the English language. If you know the truth, you know the truth. And if you know it's a lie, you know it's a lie. It's that little thing in the middle that can pull you left or right. It can pull you to the truth or pull you to the lie. Doubt is the destroyer of all hope. And cynical people, well, they like to share their doubts. That's all I know for sure. And I'm one of those people that, man, you can tell me it's broken, but until I actually figure out it's broken, I gotta assume it's not broken yet. I'm a firm believer, as I'll believe it until I know it's not true. And I'm not... Listen, I'm not somebody who's a pushover either. I'm very articulate, I'm smart in my actions, but I've got to assume that there's truth in everything until I learn there's no truth in it. So the truth is, you can be anything you want to be. Listen, I dropped out of high school, then went back to college as a mature student because I realized that wasn't a good idea. And I do. I'm a firm believer in it. And none of my schooling has anything to do with what I do today for a living. But it taught me things. Taught me to get up and go to school, taught me to be disciplined, and taught me to overcome things that I didn't know. And I'm a good learner, and I'm a fast learner. And even at this stage of my life, in a minute, you know, I'm studying all the AI stuff now, so I understand all of it as it equates to business and financial services. I'm taking courses online all the time because I want to understand the direction of our world, because one day there wasn't cell phones. See, I was brought up in a house in the 70s where, you know, the phone would ring and everybody in the house would go, hey, I got it. And now your cell phone rings. Don't touch it, man. I don't know that number. I'm not taking it, right? Am I right? Like, I mean,
that's hilarious.
It is. And definitely, like, that 70s show that used to be on, that was our kitchen, the yellow wallpaper, the yellow phone. It was just like that. And I know we got a couple minutes left, but guys, I really want to leave you on a very positive note. We're coming to the holiday season. I don't care what you have and what you don't have. All I know is that there was a couple Christmases I couldn't buy Christmas for my daughters. And years later, people would come to my house and there'd be like stacks of Christmas gifts, and they go, you spoil your kids. I go, well, you weren't here when they got nothing. Yeah. And I remember 2 Christmases, I had a Christmas tree because my dad dropped it off. I had groceries because somebody else donated them. So I'm not, my humility is clear. I know what it's like to dig a trench to make a living. I know what it's like to sell things to pay a bill, but I also know what it's like to not be attached to that feeling. I know what it's like to say, this is what's happening, this isn't who I am. So if I can leave you one very positive message today, live in the world of this is what's happening to me, this isn't who I am. I'm bigger than this, I'm better than this, because everybody on planet Earth is better than they're playing. And whatever your beliefs are, good for you. All I'm going to say to you is you're put here for a reason to do something great. Stop messing it up with doing things that aren't serving you in your future.
All right, good way to end it. All right, ladies and gents, thank you for being with us today. Look forward to talking to you guys soon. To each and every one, if we don't talk again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. And as always, it's been your home, your money, and our lives on realityradio101.com. Have a great weekend, or rest of your week.
Have a great holiday season if we don't see you.
Thank you for listening to Your Home, Your Money with your hosts Anthony and Ray right here on Reality Radio 101.